Have you ever stopped to think that the world is full of stories that defy logic, that make you question whether we really understand reality? Sometimes, a simple vacation or an ordinary day can turn into something completely unexplainable. Today, you will hear real accounts of missing people, cases that shocked families, towns, and even entire countries. Stories that began with small details and ended in mysteries that were never solved, and perhaps never will be. Before we begin, I want to make an invitation. If you have ever witnessed something strange, frightening, or unexplainable, something that no one believed, share it with us. Who knows? Your story could be the next one featured here. Don't worry about judgment. What matters here is the truth you experienced. And while you're at it, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. Now, get ready. Some of these stories will make you uneasy, others will make you feel the same silent fear that consumed their victims, and all of them share a common element: unexplainable disappearances, desperate decisions, and fates wrapped in mystery. In June 2014, Lars Matank, a 28-year-old German described by everyone as calm and reserved, decided to take a trip to Varna, Bulgaria, accompanied by friends. The plan was simple: enjoy the coast, cheap drinks, and the lively nightlife. Lars wasn't the type to get into trouble. He didn't fight, didn't argue, and avoided tense situations. But one night, that seemed like just another evening at a local bar. Something changed. An argument with some local men, apparently sparked by a sports rivalry, ended with Lars injured. His eardrum had been ruptured. This injury brought an unexpected complication. With his hearing impaired, flying back home became risky. The doctor was clear. He needed to stay and recover. His friends offered to stay with him. But Lars, with the calm demeanor that defined him, insisted they return to Germany without him. "I'll be fine," he assured them. He just needed a few days of rest. Alone in a modest hotel near the airport, Lars began exhibiting strange and disturbing behavior. Calls to his mother increased. He was visibly terrified. He asked her to cancel his credit cards and claimed people were following him on the streets. At one point, he left the hotel in the middle of the night, claiming that 4 mysterious men were after him. He asked about the side effects of antibiotics, as if the medication were part of a larger puzzle no one else could understand. Hotel staff described him as restless, pacing back and forth, constantly checking the windows, as if every shadow concealed a threat. Then came July 8th, the day of his scheduled flight. Airport surveillance footage shows Lars entering the terminal, appearing calm. But quickly, tension becomes evident in his body language. He talks to an employee for a few moments and suddenly bolts toward the automatic doors, sprinting across the parking lot at full speed, leaving everything behind: his luggage, passport, and personal belongings. The last footage shows him disappearing into the trees near a construction site, leaving a trail of unanswered questions. Lars's disappearance sparked a wave of theories. Some suggest a psychotic break triggered by the antibiotic or an underlying mental illness. Others believe something darker was at play, that he was truly being followed, and something indescribably terrifying drove him to run barefoot, desperate, into what seemed like nothingness. Sporadic sightings were reported in Eastern Europe for years, but nothing was ever confirmed. His mother insists to this day, Lars never had mental health issues. To her, he encountered something he shouldn't have, something dangerous enough to make him vanish without a trace. The image of him running across the parking lot, eyes wide and desperate, went viral. But the question remains: what did he see? Where did he go? Lars's mystery isn't the only one on this dark list. Back in 1912, in the small town of Opelousas, Louisiana, a 4-year-old boy named Bobby Dunbar disappeared during a fishing trip at Seaway Lake. A frantic search mobilized hundreds, scouring forests, dragging the lake, and even using underwater explosives in hopes of finding him. But Bobby vanished into thin air. Months later, a boy resembling Bobby was found traveling with William Walters, a traveling handyman from Mississippi. Walters claimed the child was Julia Anderson's son, but the Dunars were certain it was Bobby. Walters was arrested, and after an initially confusing reunion, The press announced Bobby had been returned to the family. But Julia Anderson, the child's biological mother, claimed him. Without resources or support, she lost the legal battle. Decades later, DNA tests revealed something devastating. The boy raised as Bobby Dooner was not biologically a Doonar. He was Bruce Anderson, and the real Bobby Doonar was never found. In 1928, another child disappeared. 9-year-old Walter Collins in Los Angeles. His mother, Christine Collins, gave him a few coins to see a movie, but he never returned. After 5 months of intense searching, the police presented a boy claiming to be Walter. Christine insisted, "This is not my son." Ignored and disbelieved, she was institutionalized while the boy admitted the deception. The real Walter was never located. The case became even more macabre when serial killer Gordon Northcott was arrested for imprisoning and murdering boys on his farm, raising suspicions that Walter may have been one of his victims. Christine spent the rest of her life searching for the truth, while the city celebrated a false resolution. The story later inspired the film Changeling. But the reality was far darker. A mother betrayed by the system, a lost child, and a police force more concerned with public image than justice. In August 2008, the disappearance of 24-year-old Kayla Reed in a small British Columbia town added another chapter to this story of interrupted lives. After a difficult breakup, she had returned to her parents' home trying to start over. But suddenly, Kayla vanished without a trace, leaving only the unsettling sense that something invisible and relentless was watching. On what seemed like a normal evening, Kayla told her mother she was going to meet a friend at a nearby cafe. Around 7:30 p.m., she left, wearing a light hoodie and jeans, carrying only her phone, without a purse. But that outing never ended. Less than an hour later, her phone went silent. What followed was a frantic local search, a race against the impossible. Flyers covered posts and trees, volunteers combed the forests around town, and tracking dogs followed trails that ended abruptly, as if Kayla had evaporated. There were no signs of a struggle, no missing items, no video footage, no witnesses. Kayla was described as responsible, grounded, someone who would never disappear voluntarily. Her parents, devastated, felt each day stretch endlessly, suffocating them. The case cooled over time, until a year later, something unexpected happened. In the early hours of July 5, 2009, Kayla reappeared. Nearly 200 meters from where she disappeared, she walked into a hospital alone. Disoriented, barefoot, exhausted, visibly thinner, and with sunburned skin, she wore clothes that were not hers. When asked about her whereabouts, she refused to speak, only writing her name on a piece of paper. After fingerprints were verified, it was officially her, missing for 11 months. The reunion with her parents was silent. She looked at them, sometimes smiling, but never hugged them. When asked, she said only, "I was in the dark. I was safe, but I wasn't me." Doctors and authorities were baffled. No injuries, no apparent abuse, no trauma, and no signs of drugs. She spent a week under psychiatric observation and then returned home without giving any explanation. Silently, Kayla deleted her social media accounts and moved, carrying the secrets of her lost year with her. Before leaving the hospital, she whispered to a nurse, "Don't go into the forest alone. They'll find you there." The meaning of this statement has never been understood, but everyone who heard it remembers it to this day. Almost a decade later, in October 2017, another mysterious disappearance occurred. Connor Hastings, a 15-year-old high school student in Santa Rosa, California, vanished while walking home from school. His route was everyday, peaceful, lined with trees, but that afternoon, Connor simply disappeared. His backpack was found behind a trash bin a few blocks away, but his phone was gone. The police launched an intensive search. Dogs followed a scent trail that ended abruptly at the entrance of a wooded path, where it seemed to simply vanish. No tire tracks, no witnesses, nothing. Colleagues reported strange behavior in the days leading up to it. The boy seemed paranoid, reacting to subtle noises and asking strangers if they had seen a man in a red jacket. There were even mentions of him feeling watched. Months later, in March 2018, Connor reappeared. An anonymous call led the police to a bench in front of a library, 60 miles away. He was silent, staring blankly into space. His clothes were dirty, his hair much longer. In his hands, he held a spiral-bound notebook, completely blank. He didn't speak for more than 24 hours. When he finally began to report, he only said that he had been taken by an unknown group, kept somewhere cold and unaware of time. "They just let me go. I guess I passed their test," he said. A month later, Connor gave his final statement. "There were others. I heard them. I wasn't the only one, but I might be the only one they returned." The notebook remained empty, except for 4 shaky words on the last page. "I was not alone." No suspects were identified, and the FBI reviewed the case without conclusions. Connor changed schools and adopted a new name. Officially, the case was closed, but the sense of mystery lingers. On February 9, 2004, Maura Murray, a 21-year-old nursing student, disappeared after a minor car accident on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. Earlier that day, she had left her dorm sending fake emails to her professors, claiming a family death, but no one had died. Maura withdrew nearly all the money from her account, bought some essentials, including alcohol, and drove alone toward the White Mountains, without a clear destination. Around 7:27 p.m., a local resident called 911. A black Saturn had collided with a snowbank on a curve. Police found the car locked, airbags deployed, a box of wine spilled inside, but no sign of Maura. A nearby bus driver reported seeing the young woman moments before, visibly shaken, refusing help. By the time police arrived, she had vanished. Tracking dogs followed her scent for about 100 meters, then abruptly stopped. No trace, no footprints, nothing. Her phone and credit cards were never used again. Some of the alcohol had mysteriously disappeared from the car. There were no signs of a crime or mental health issues. Maura had plans for the future, and yet she disappeared without explanation. In the years that followed, forums, podcasters, and amateur sleuths tried to unravel the case. Some believe she staged her disappearance. Others think she was kidnapped. Darker theories persist, things few dare imagine, but which hang in the air, unsettlingly. Something definitely happened to Maura Murray that February night, in 2004. Whether it was a serial predator, a planned abduction, or some carefully orchestrated cover-up, no one knows for sure. Her body was never found, and no concrete leads emerged. But something deliberate and disturbing marked that night. The forest bordering Route 112 still holds its secrets, silent, cold, relentless. And the most chilling part is that if Maura was taken, whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing, leaving no room for mistakes. Now let's move to the far north of the United States. In the isolated town of Nome, Alaska, where tundra stretches for hundreds of miles and the main access is by plane, residents are used to occasional strangeness. Endless winters, nights that seem to last for months, and howling winds are part of the routine. But even in this setting of isolation and resilience, the disappearance of Rick Hills in 2004 remains etched in the memories of all who heard about it, and many speak of it in whispers. Rick Hills was 37 years old, worked as an electrician, was calm, reserved, and deeply loved by those who knew him. Living alone in a small cabin on the outskirts of Nome, near the edge of the wilderness, he led a reclusive life, as many locals preferred. But the peculiarity of his disappearance wasn't his solitude. It was the unsettling perfection of his absence. In the 10 years prior, more than 20 people had disappeared from Nome under equally enigmatic circumstances. The FBI recognized a pattern, but Rick's story was different, personal, almost intimate, and deeply disturbing. On November 13, 2004, Rick didn't show up for work. His boss called repeatedly with no answer. That night, a co-worker drove to his cabin. The truck was parked, the lights off, and a light snowfall had covered everything. But as he approached, something didn't make sense. no footprints inside or outside the cabin. It was as if Rick had never left or returned. The coworker knocked, and receiving no response, entered through the strangely open back door. The interior appeared untouched, the coffee maker full, the cell phone on the table. But Rick was not there. And the bed. The bed was impeccably made, as if it had never been used. The scene was so perfect it seemed disconnected from reality, almost supernatural. Police were called and combed every inch of the cabin and surrounding area. Drones, helicopters, tracking dogs. Nothing produced clues. No trail, no evidence, no logical explanation. Rick vanished without a coat, without boots, without keys, leaving no traces, and neither his bank account nor phone showed any activity afterward. 2 days later, an even more disturbing event came to light, though the public wasn't informed until years later. A hiker, about 30 miles north of Nome, found something bizarre. A frozen sock in the mud of a hunting trail. Nearby, partially buried under snow, was an old Polaroid, crumpled and nearly destroyed by the cold. The image showed Rick's cabin viewed from the forest. In the reflection of the living room window, there was a face. But it was not Rick's. The photo was turned over to the police but never released publicly. Years later, an officer who worked the case anonymously told a journalist, "The face in the reflection didn't look human. He described it as detached, distorted, pale, with wide-open eyes and a slightly open mouth, as if caught mid-whisper or in an unexpected gaze." The area was searched again, but nothing else was found. Locals began referring to whatever lurked in the forest as the Watcher. Ancient legends spoke of a dark entity, something that hid among the trees and hunted at night. The FBI suggested common causes, weather, accidents, alcohol. But everyone who knew Rick understood it wasn't that. He knew every inch of the forest. He would never leave barefoot in sub-zero temperatures, never leave the door open, never disappear without a single trace. To this day, Rick Hills remains missing. Some say it was a tragic accident. Others claim he saw something he shouldn't have, something that was watching him. And the most disturbing part, every clue, every detail, every absence of evidence indicates this was no accident or random occurrence. Something, or someone, was waiting for him that cold night. The thread connecting these disappearances begins with Maura Murray, who vanished in 2004 on Route 112. To this day, no one knows if she was a victim of a predator, a calculated abduction, or some orchestrated cover-up. Her absence remains, shrouded in mystery, and the forest bordering the road guards its silent secrets. Each tree, every snow-covered trail seems to whisper that something happened there. Something no one should witness. A few months later, attention turns to the far north of the United States, in an even more isolated region. Nome, Alaska. A remote town, accessible primarily by plane, where winters are relentless and nights can last for weeks. There, the disappearance of Rick Hills in November 2004 is still whispered among residents. Rick, a 37-year-old electrician, reserved and beloved by all, lived alone in a cabin on the outskirts of town. His routine was simple, predictable, yet that day he vanished without a trace. There were no signs of struggle, footprints, or any trace of the man they knew so well. His phone remained on the table, the coffee maker full, the bed impeccably made, as if no one had ever slept in it. 2 days later, a hiker found 30 miles north a frozen sock and, buried under the snow, a Polaroid of Rick's cabin. In the window's reflection, a distorted face stared directly at the lens, but it was not his. Whoever, or whatever, was there knew exactly what they were doing. Decades earlier, other disappearances echoed through the dark memories of the continent. In Los Angeles, 1928, Christine Collins lost her son, Walter. He vanished, only to be replaced by another boy, a fraud, while the police ignored the mother, more concerned with maintaining a good public image than seeking the truth. The real Walter was never found. In Louisiana, 1912, the case of Bobby Dunar resonated with similar echoes. kidnapped, recovered years later, only to discover it wasn't him, and that the child raised as Bobby was never the Dunar family's true son. Mystery, deception, silence, and grief intertwined like an invisible web stretching across generations. Fast forward to 2008, Kayla Reed disappeared from a small town in British Columbia. She vanished without any signs of struggle or trauma. 11 months later, she returned, dehydrated, barefoot, visibly changed. "I was in the dark. I was safe, but I wasn't me," she said, offering no further explanation. Once again, the forest remained a silent witness. Then, in 2017, Connor Hastings went missing. An ordinary teenager, disappearing while walking the same street he traveled daily. Found months later, far away, silent, clutching a blank notebook. A month later, he wrote 4 words on the final page. "I was not alone." No one knew if it was true, but the weight of the mystery was palpable. Now, looking at Maura Murray, Rick Hills, Kayla Reed, and Connor Hastings, a thin line connects each disappearance. Frozen forests, isolated towns, dark trails, and moments of absolute silence. In every case, something, or someone, vanishes with the precision of one who knows the path, observing, waiting. Nothing is left to chance. Some suggest there is an invisible force, something or someone that chooses its victims with meticulous, almost ritualistic care. Others believe in macabre coincidences, but every detail, the frozen sock, the distorted reflection, the blank notebook, the shaky words written afterward, suggests otherwise. There are patterns, intentions, presences that defy explanation. The lingering feeling is the same. The world we know is only a superficial layer. Beneath it, shadows move silently, watching and selecting, leaving only minimal traces to remind us that the unknown is not just possible, it is real. And each of these disappearances, as inexplicable as it seems, is a cruel reminder that the line between normalcy and the unexplainable is thin, and often, crossing it is irreversible. And so, we reach the end of this sequence of disappearances that defy logic, reminding us that not everything in this world can be explained. Maura Murray, Rick Hills, Kayla Reed, Connor Hastings, each vanished under circumstances so perfect, so meticulously silent, that it forces us to confront something disturbing. Perhaps there is a force, or someone, watching, choosing, and acting with a precision beyond our understanding. And even when some of these people return, like Kayla or Connor, they never come back completely the same. There are traces of what they experienced, fragments of a time no one can understand or explain. Those forests, those trails, those isolated towns, all guard their secrets, patiently waiting for another moment, another victim, another unexplained disappearance. In the end, the only certainty is that these cases remain alive, not just in the memory of families, but in every corner where the unknown lurks, silent and patient. Some disappearances will never be solved, some faces will never be seen, and some stories will never have answers. But the mystery, that remains, and perhaps it is precisely that which keeps us awake, imagining, looking over our shoulder, asking, what if, for a moment, we are being watched too? The world is larger, darker, and quieter than we would like to believe, and sometimes all that remains is to face the void, feel the chill, and understand that not every disappearance needs an explanation to be terrifying. Until the next story.